People don't fall in love with you because they truly see you. They fall in love with what you awaken in them. And sometimes that awakening isn't about light. It's about memory. It's about pain. We like to imagine that love is pure, conscious, chosen. But more often, it begins somewhere deeper, in the unconscious, where wounds breathe quietly and forgotten parts of us still cry out. This is the first reason people fall in love with you. You remind them of their wound. You don't complete them. You echo something that was never finished. A feeling, a story, a person, a pain that never found resolution. They don't fall for you as you are. They fall for who you represent. You show up in their life and something stirs, not because of what you say, but because of what you reflect. You remind them of the one who left, the one who stayed silent, the one who withheld love unless it was earned. And now, without realizing it, they feel drawn to you, not because you feel safe, but because you feel familiar. And familiarity is powerful, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. They say it feels like home, but what they really mean is, you feel like the emotional environment they were raised in. You move like the pain they grew up around. You withdraw in the way they learned to chase. You validate them just enough to keep their hope alive. To them, that feels like love. But it isn't. It's recognition. It's reenactment. The psyche remembers what it couldn't process. And when someone reminds us of that, through tone, expression, timing, energy, we don't experience it as memory. We experience it as chemistry. But not all chemistry is truth. Sometimes it's unresolved trauma looking for resolution. Carl Jung called these complexes emotionally charged themes and experiences stored in the unconscious that distort how we relate to others. When a person activates your complex, you don't see them. You see your own wound projected onto them, and you want to fix it, heal it, win it, but through them. That's the dangerous illusion. You think you're falling in love, when in fact you're falling into a past that was never healed. The attention you seek isn't from this person. It's from someone else entirely. A parent, a caregiver, someone who made you feel invisible, someone who taught you love must be earned through performance, perfection, sacrifice. So now, when someone reminds you of that person, it feels electric, like a second chance. Like this time, you'll finally get it right. But that's not how healing works. You can't rewrite the story by reenacting the same emotional dynamic. You can't love yourself through someone else's approval. Still, people try, over and over, and the stronger the pain, the stronger the pull. You give more than you should. You tolerate what you know is wrong. You justify red flags as passion. You mistake intensity for intimacy. You call chaos fate. And all of it feels urgent, important, real. But it's not love. It's your inner child chasing closure. And the other person? They're not a savior. They're a symbol, a stand-in, someone whose traits, often unknowingly, match the ones that hurt you most. And because your unconscious is trying to repair that old rupture, you convince yourself, if they stay, if they choose me, if they finally see me, it means I was always worthy. It means I was never the problem. But the problem is, you're not loving them. You're trying to rescue yourself. And that's why it doesn't last. When they stop playing the role, when they show their real, flawed human self, you're disappointed. Not because they failed you, but because they failed the fantasy. Because they couldn't be who your wound needed them to be. So the connection unravels. The illusion breaks. And you're left not with heartbreak, but with truth. They were never what you thought. And neither was the love. You weren't in love. You were in recognition, in projection, in unconscious repair mode. And now you're waking up. But waking up hurts, because it means accepting that most of what you thought was real wasn't. It was familiar, and your nervous system chased familiarity, not safety. That's what trauma does. It trains you to mistake what's predictable for what's good. And love becomes a loop. Find someone who feels like the pain. Try to fix it through them. Fail. Repeat. Until you stop. Until you pause. Until you look at the pattern and say, this isn't love. It's repetition. This isn't connection. It's reenactment. And what I want isn't another chance to be broken. What I want is to be free. That freedom begins when you realize not everyone who triggers you is meant to complete you. Not every person who pulls you in is your soulmate. Sometimes they're just your shadow, mirroring the part of you that still aches, that still fears, that still begs for validation. And when you meet someone like that, the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for them, is to step back and ask, is this real? Or is this my history playing itself out again? Because people fall in love with you for many reasons. But the first and most dangerous one is this. You look like their unfinished story. And they don't want you. They want resolution. But love doesn't begin with reenactment. It begins when you stop letting your wounds choose your relationships. When you stop mistaking recognition for resonance. When you stop chasing the ghosts of people who never saw you in the first place. Love begins in the truth. And the truth is, if someone loves you for the pain you reflect, they're not loving you at all. They're trying to escape themselves through you. Not all love is born in pain. Sometimes people fall in love with you not because you reflect their wound, but because you awaken their potential. You don't remind them of what hurt. They fall for you because you show them something they've forgotten exists inside themselves. A possibility, a fire, a version of life that feels more alive, more whole, more real than the one they've been living. You become a symbol, not of their past, but of their becoming. Something in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you move through the world. It touches something inside them that has been buried under fear, silence, shame, or duty. They don't love you because they're broken. They love you because they're waking up to the version of themselves they abandoned, waking up to the path they never walked, waking up to the truth that there's more to life than surviving. You don't save them, you remind them, and that reminder feels like light after years in the dark. Carl Jung described this as the process of individuation, the lifelong unfolding of the self. Most people don't live from their self. They live from their persona, their mask, their adaptations. They become who they're supposed to be. But when someone lives even partially from their self, when they've touched their truth, walked through their shadow, and come out the other side, you can feel it. It's not in what they say. It's in their presence. It's in the stillness behind their eyes. It's in the way they aren't performing, the way they aren't chasing or proving or pleasing. And when someone who is still disconnected from their own essence meets a person like that, it stirs something deep. Not fear this time, not trauma, but longing. A longing to be that free. A longing to be that clear, that whole, that alive. This is the second reason people fall in love with you. Not because you reflect their damage, but because you mirror their destiny. You activate their ideal, not a fantasy, but an archetype. Jung called these inner images the Anima and Animus, the internal feminine and masculine energies that shape our perception, desire, and connection. When you encounter someone who embodies your inner archetype, it doesn't feel like meeting a stranger. It feels like remembering a part of yourself, and you project that power onto them, not because they possess it, but because they awaken it. That's why admiration feels so much like love, because it's personal, it's aspirational. It's the soul recognizing itself in another and saying, I could be more. But this kind of love, too, carries its risks. Because the line between inspiration and idealization is thin. If they're not conscious, they won't see you. They'll elevate you, put you on a pedestal, worship you as the answer. Not because you are, but because they don't yet trust their own strength. And when people don't trust their own light, they look for someone to carry it for them. You become that someone. And suddenly, you're no longer a person. You're a symbol, a projection, a dream. And the weight of that dream is crushing, because no one can live as another's salvation. Eventually, you disappoint them. Not because you failed, but because you dared to be human, because you broke the spell. And when the illusion fades, they may walk away, not from you, but from themselves, from the part of them that was trying to awaken. But if they are conscious, if they are aware of what's happening, then this kind of love becomes something sacred. It becomes an initiation, a mirror, a call to action. They don't try to possess you. They don't try to make you responsible for their growth. They thank you for showing them who they are. And then they begin the work of reclaiming the light they saw in you, not by copying you, but by becoming themselves. That's when love becomes transformation. Not because it completes you, but because it reflects you, because it shows you who you could be if you stopped hiding, if you stopped pretending, if you let go of the roles, the guilt, the shame, and remembered your own name. That kind of love is rare, and if you've ever been the one who sparked it in someone else, you know how beautiful and terrifying it can be. Because people don't just fall for your strength. They fall for the freedom they feel in your presence, the honesty, the peace, the authenticity. They fall in love with the life force you carry, the self-trust, the rootedness, the refusal to perform. And sometimes they think that by being close to you, they can have it too. But what they don't realize is that what they're drawn to was always inside them. It's not yours. It's theirs. You just reminded them. and that reminder changed everything. So if someone falls in love with you and tells you, "You make me feel like I can breathe," or "You make me want to be better," or "I don't know why, but you make me feel more alive," what they're really saying is, "I see who I could be, and you gave me permission to want it." That's not manipulation. That's magic. That's the kind of love that doesn't try to own you. It honors you. It learns from you. It lets you go when it must. Because it was never about having you. It was about remembering themselves. So much of what we call love is not love at all. It's memory. It's longing. It's projection. It's the mind reaching backward or forward, trying to find resolution through another human being. And most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. We think we're loving the person in front of us. But what we're actually doing is loving who we need them to be. Sometimes that means we fall in love because they reflect our pain. Sometimes we fall because they reflect our potential. In both cases, it's not them we're loving, it's ourselves, through them. We either want healing from what hurt us or access to what we've been afraid to become. And so they become the canvas. They become the mirror. They become the symbol of something unfinished, something we couldn't resolve, or couldn't reach, or couldn't believe was ever truly ours. But projection is not love. It may feel intense. It may feel consuming. It may feel like destiny. But it isn't real. Not yet. Because real love requires seeing. And you can't truly see someone when you're looking through the lens of your own unmet needs. That's the turning point. When you catch yourself reaching for a person and you ask, "Am I seeing them? Or am I seeing me?" It's a painful question, because most of us have been taught that love is supposed to feel big, chaotic, overwhelming. We confuse intensity with truth. We think that the more someone triggers us, the more important they must be. But the truth is often much quieter. Real love doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like peace, like safety, like being seen without performance, like presence without pressure. And that's when something new begins. When we stop falling for people because they reflect our brokenness or brilliance, and instead, we meet them as they are. No fantasy, no fix, no hidden contract. This kind of love is rare because it asks for awareness. It asks for patience. It asks that you let go of the person you want them to be and embrace the person they actually are. It means holding your projections up to the light and saying, "This isn't theirs to carry." It means grieving the fantasy, letting it die so something more honest can be born. That's the shift, from unconscious love to conscious connection, from emotional survival to relational truth. When someone truly loves you, they don't just love how you make them feel. They love your edges, your flaws, your silences. They don't need you to play a role. They don't need you to fit into their story. They choose you because of who you are, not because of who you remind them of. And you do the same. You stop looking for rescue. You stop reaching for repair. You stop using another person to finish your story, because you've begun to finish it yourself. This is where real intimacy begins. When two people can sit across from each other, stripped of projection, and say, "I see you," not as an echo of my pain, not as a mirror of my power, but as a whole, separate being, with your own fears, dreams, wounds, and light. And I choose to walk with you, not to fix you, not to be fixed by you, but to walk beside you. That's love, not performance, not dependence, not fantasy, just presence. But to get there, you have to unlearn everything you were taught about what love is supposed to feel like. You have to question the stories you've built around attraction. You have to slow down enough to notice when you're being pulled in by the familiar, the intense, the dramatic, and ask, is this love or is this a loop? Because until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your relationships, and you will call it fate. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's exactly what happens in love. We fall into patterns. We repeat dynamics. We chase the same emotional shape with different faces, and we call it destiny. But it's not destiny. It's programming. And we can interrupt it by paying attention, by taking responsibility, by staying awake to our own hunger, not just for connection, but for completion. When you realize this, something powerful happens. You stop blaming others for your pain. You stop idolizing those who inspire you. You begin to understand that everyone you love is showing you something about yourself. The ones who hurt you reflected your wounds. The ones who inspired you reflected your light. And the ones who stayed, who saw you, heard you, held space for you, they reflected your wholeness. And that wholeness was always yours. You just forgot. You just looked for it in someone else's eyes. So now, when someone falls in love with you, you no longer ask, why me? You ask, what part of them am I touching? Is it their pain, their potential, or their truth? And when you fall in love, you ask yourself the same. What do I really see in them? And am I willing to let go of the fantasy to meet the reality? Because love is not about finding the person who makes you feel better. It's about becoming the person who doesn't need to hide anymore. The person who can show up fully, honestly, openly, and allow someone else to do the same. No masks, no roles, no projections. Just two people, choosing each other, with nothing to prove and everything to share. That's what we're really looking for. Not a savior, not a symbol, but a mirror that doesn't distort. A connection that doesn't seduce us with fantasy, but grounds us in truth. And when you find that, not because you need it, but because you're ready for it, it won't feel like a high. It'll feel like home, not the home of your past, not the pain you've memorized, but the one you've never known, the one you had to build inside yourself first.